Hi, everyone. This is Betty Salanic. I'm the CEO and founder of Accelerator Investors. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you're all safe and healthy. We know this is quite an uncertain time for everyone. Just to give a little bit of background on myself, Accelerator Investors is focused on accelerating great investing that is diverse and inclusive across all asset classes, and I'm really pleased to partner with Angeles Investors and Angel Capital Association for this exciting webinar. I also host a podcast called CIO Conversations, where I interview CIOs of pension funds, foundations, endowments, and it's available on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can listen to podcasts. I encourage you all to tune in and to hear what is in top of mind for institutional investors. Today, I will be moderating a webinar brought to you by Angeles Investors and its strategic partner, Angel Capital Association. As many of you know, Hispanics make up less than 2% of founders who've received venture capital funding. Angeles Investors wants to solve this problem. Its mission is to find, fund, and grow the most promising Latinx and Hispanic ventures. Together with its members, sponsors, and partners, it is building a national angel group to support these entrepreneurs. ACA is critical to the success of Angeles Investors. ACA helps Angeles Investors connect with more than 14,000 angels and 250 plus angel groups across the country, and it provides the members of Angeles Investors with opportunity to become educated in the science of early stage investing. Today, our program will feature a discussion led by Pat Gouhin, CEO of ACA, and then I will moderate a panel with our two entrepreneurs, Daniela Corrente, co-founder and CEO of Real, and Ruben Garcia, co-founder and CEO of pValue. We will have time at the end to answer questions from the audience, and please use your chat function to submit your questions throughout the panel. Now I'd like to turn it over to Pat, who will walk us through what he's seeing in today's environment. Pat, welcome, and please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Betty, and it is wonderful to be here today with Angeles Investors in your first virtual event. So I'm happy to be here. I wish we could be face-to-face, but that's not the cards that we've been dealt at the present time. So as Betty said, I'm with the Angel Capital Association, and we are a professional society of about 14,000 members that are made up of 250 different angel groups. Most of those are in the US, but really around the world. And the first point that I'd like to make to you is that as a member of Angeles Angels Investors, then you're also a member of ACA. So a lot of the things that we're going to talk about and the benefits we have are available to the investors of the group. As a professional society, we've been around for about 15 years or so, and we're really the steward of the community. That's important to think of because we take that responsibility very seriously, and we want to work with the entire ecosystem and all of the stakeholders in that. So obviously that involves angel groups, it involves individual angels, it involves family offices, we have economic development agencies, we have the incubators, the accelerators, the academic side of this with all the university programs, and then the entrepreneurs as well. So we're really looking to kind of bring all of those communities together in a harmonious way where we all benefit. And how do we do that? Well, through a variety of products and services. We do the typical things that most professional societies do. Networking events like this. We have conferences of our own. We also have an active, membership program that looks at smart practices between groups and information sharing. Education. We do a lot of webinars in various aspects of this. And then we've recently launched an Angel University with specific courses. Data analytics is another area that's important to us, and we've really just over the past couple of years begun to study that. And the reason is because we're trying to bring out the science of angel investing and really show that while there is kind of a black art and a subjective nature to all of this, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from the deals that have been done, and how do we improve the hit rate and the success for the investors as well as the entrepreneurs itself. So we're doing a lot of research in that area. Another area that is really just kind of taking off at the moment is syndication. And of course, that's based upon trust and credibility between networks. As a profession, we're 15, 20 years old or so. So we're really at the infant stages of all this. And we as a professional society have a role to play in establishing a common framework and setting those smart practices so that the rest of the community has a low friction point when they try to communicate with each other and share these opportunities. So that's important. And then the final area that we really work on as a professional society is public policy and making sure that we are out there representing the interests of not only the investors, but also the entrepreneurs themselves. So in the remaining time, I thought I'd kind of break my talk down into three areas. One is, kind of what's going on in Washington, D.C. relative to stimulus and public policy on that. Then we'll get into kind of ACA's response to COVID-19 and what we're doing as an organization. And then finally leave you with a few trends or some things that we're trying to work through and make sure that we've got an accurate picture of the landscape that's in front of us. So, let's go back to the CARES Act. All of you are probably familiar with that. That was passed into law on March 27. And there were $350 billion set aside as part of the payroll protection plan. In a given year, the SBA, puts out about $30 billion a year in loans. And so they were asked to go from a workload of putting out $30 billion in 52 weeks to doing $350 billion in 6 weeks. So that's kind of the first challenge that's out there. If you think about that from a workload standpoint, they're just overwhelmed with the opportunity. And so as a professional organization, we kind of worked with the legislators, we worked with, all of the different players in this to say, gee, we rushed through this. It's great that we're getting money out there, but how do we make sure there aren't any unintended consequences and that we get the funds in the right hands to do good for the economy? And, that was one of the first issues that we found is in there what was referred to as an affiliation rule. So we worked with them to get a revision to that so that startups, small groups, the original wording was such that if you as a founder had a bunch of investors and those investors had a bunch of other portfolio companies, they had to roll up all of those employees. And if all of the collective employees totaled more than 500, you weren't eligible. And that is the case with a lot of, angel portfolios and venture capital funds. So we were able to kind of get some relief on that. And then, focus on getting the dollars out there. Now, this is showing you how fast things are changing. As of Monday, I had a report from the SBA, and on Monday, just under 5,000 lenders had made loans to about 1 million different applicants and pushed out $250 billion. As of yesterday, all $350 billion were out the door. So $100 billion's gone out in the past 4 days. The stats I have are as of Monday, so these may have changed a little bit, but based upon that first $250 billion that went out, about 70% of that went for loans that were less than $150,000. About 15% of it were for loans between $150,000 and $350,000, and then about 10% were between $350,000 and $1 million. And a very small amount, less than 5%, were between the 1 million and 5 million range. So that gives you a feel that first $350 billion is gone. There is now talk of replenishing that. I'm told that's probably likely in the near future. We would anticipate seeing probably another $250 billion go into that pot. But as of now, I understand banks are no longer accepting loans. But, if you're in need of those funds, look for the next round and make sure that you're there early on in that. In addition to those PPP funds, there is also what's known as EIDL, or the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. Initially, this was a pot of about $7.3 billion, and they had thought that the loans would be available up to about $2 million. I'm told by the latest numbers that that 7.3 has been fully, allocated, and that they've had applications for $372 billion in loans. So they really reduced the level of the loans that they're giving out. I'm told in many cases it's that, 10,000 within 72 hours that they promised, and then a maximum of 15,000 more on top of that. So maybe only 25,000 or so, with 10 of it being a forgivable grant. They've also changed kind of the formulas that they're using, and I believe as of the moment, they're only allowing $1,000 per employee that they carve out in that program. I'm told in the next round of legislation, they're hoping that another $50 billion will go into that EIDL program. And then there's another program called the Main Street Loan Program that has another $454 billion in that, with a additional special purpose vehicle of $75 billion that is renewable 8 times, up to a total of $600 billion that can go out. Right now, from a legislative standpoint, we're working to reduce some of the concerns that we see with that. At the top of that list is the way it was initially structured. It would only benefit profitable companies because it's based on EBITDA. And so what we are hoping to do is to get some relief on that, to say for a startup company that doesn't have revenues yet, you have to use a different measure. And we're proposing that that measure should be based upon the last valuation, post money, and taking some percentage of that to determine minimum and maximum loan amounts that would be eligible. So we're working that real time. We'll see what happens in the near future. Those amounts of replenishment that I just mentioned are all part of what they're kind of calling phase 3.5. There is an anticipated phase 4 that's still to come. But, Congress has the same issues that the rest of us do, in that they are not there. They're in session pro forma, which means they need unanimous consent on any of these approvals, which you know how challenging it is in normal times. This just makes it that much more challenging to get everybody on the same page. But we're working with several other similar groups like the National Venture Capital Association, AdvaMed, BIA, others that have similar, concerns that we do, to represent the community that all of you represent. Again, whether you're on the investor side or the angel side, it's all about the startup ecosystem. So moving on to, kind of ACA's response to the pandemic, and what are we doing? Well, we're pivoting just like everybody else. And we've developed a lot of new resources. On our website, on the homepage, you will find a Leaders in Action blog. That's a lot of wonderful stories from a lot of experienced entrepreneurs and angels from when they went through the 2008-9 recession, 9/11, the dot-com bust, and that. So there's a lot of good advice. It's there, it's free, it's readily available. Look for that. In our members only section, we've developed a resource guide for Angel Smart Practices, where we're posting a lot of these, what's going on in DC, the applications, the letters that we're sending, everything down to Zoom cheat sheets and how do you conduct an interactive meeting. So there's a lot of good materials there, all free and available for you. Take a look at that. We'll continue to add more information to that. Another thing that we've recently put out is a call to action for all of our different angel groups to say, if you have portfolio companies that have kind of pivoted their business model to respond to the current challenges that the country and the world are facing, we'd like to hear those success stories, because they're do good, they're feel good, they're inspirational. And so we're collecting all of those. And in our upcoming summit, what we plan to do is have a video montage of kind of these stories. But any portfolio companies that you have that have done that, we sure would like to hear about them, and we'll try and push that information out further. And then finally, I mentioned a little bit about data analytics and finding what the member sentiment is at this time. On Monday, we're going to be going out with a rather extensive survey to poll all of our members and get a feel for how they're responding and reacting, and what they see coming in the months ahead. Public policy, we're continuing those issues I mentioned, but also working issues on an accredited investor to protect that, the harmonization of capital formation with the SEC, and what's called CFIUS, or the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., to make sure that that doesn't harm angels in the startup community. On the education front, we're developing new classes. As I mentioned, we're going fully virtual with what we call our Angel University. We have always done webinars a couple times a month on Wednesdays. We've added a new group of Friday webinars that are on hot, timely topics and things that are happening there. The first one we did was kind of an overview of the stimulus package and how to apply for that. And then the last one we did was on portfolio company responses to COVID-19. And how they're maneuvering to push through this. We were planning on an annual face-to-face conference in May in Denver that has been scrapped for obvious reasons, and we're going fully virtual with that. That will still happen in mid-May with a great program that's shaping up. And then we're looking at future courses that we can do that will be virtual and really to keep the networking going. Finally, Angel Funders Report is an annual, report that we do. We're collecting all of the data from 2019. May not have as much meaning as we plan for 2020, but I think there will still be great historical value to that. And we'll want to see, kind of the spike of this unique time and, when we're back to normal and then continue those trends forward. So moving on to the final area and, kind of what we're seeing, it's certainly the angel groups have pivoted and focused their attention on their portfolio companies to help mentor them, to guide them, to help them conserve cash, to extend the runways they've got. And if there is any dry powder there, really to keep it for those companies so that they can keep them going and push through this. I think there's certainly an expectation that valuations are going to decrease from this. Not really sure what's going to happen to the capital coming from angels, but I've heard several groups report that they are anticipating at this time that they think 2020 could be at 50% or so of the level of 2019. And again, we're trying to get a better feel, on that with that sentiment survey. But there's certainly a lot of concern, and everybody is looking at this collectively, individually, and working with their portfolio companies to make sure that we do all that we can to position folks for success when this finally ends. So I think that takes care of my time, but again, I'm very honored and happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the rest of this conversation and the dialogue that will happen, and I hope to be back at the very end of it to give you a couple closing thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. And it looks like we now have one of our other panelists, Adela Cepeda, who is a board member, founding member of Angeles Investors. So we're excited to have you, Adela. Why don't we begin by all of our panelists, Adela, Ruben, and Daniela, introducing themselves on briefly a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then maybe just a tip to share with our audience on how you've been coping and staying at home.
Great. Would you like me to start? Great. Thank you. Good morning. And I sold my business too. I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, and I sold my business, had a earnout. It was a financial services business. So I sold it to the top ranked advisor in the municipal business. And my earnout ended in December of 2019. So I was just getting used to being at home 24/7. When I'm not working full time, I do serve on 4 corporate boards, including BMO Financial Corp, which has about 15,000 employees, and several mutual funds. Amongst them, I chair the Mercer Mutual Funds. And then I'm pretty active in our community here in Chicago. For me, this is like a dramatic change in pace and surroundings. I mean, my business and my life is about going out and entertaining and being at group events for the nonprofits and all that I do. So that's a big change. But, we have to do it to survive. So we'll do it.
Thank you, Adela. How about Daniela next?
Yeah, of course. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here and sharing a little bit of our story, especially in these times of COVID, where, as Adela said, we're all adapting to the new reality of Zoom 24/7. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Real. We're a company that focuses on empowering people to buy the things that they want with their own cash flow. That way they can avoid debt. So we've built a shopping platform where you can pay for the things that you want, installment savings, whatever you want, from a pair of shoes to a new couch for your house. We optimize your savings, automate your cash flow so that you can pay for it, and ultimately place the order with the retailer. So that's us. And as about COVID, definitely, and I know that we will chat about it in a little bit, but definitely the business has evolved, or the verticals that we serve for our customers have evolved with everything that's happening nowadays. And as a company internally, we really needed to work on restructuring. We're an in-person team. So setting up new structure, parameters on how we hold meetings, how we structure the calendar, how we keep culture going, right, when we're not next to each other. And for me, one of the tips or things that I use to stay sort of connected, or that helps me when I'm in my house all the time, it's actually like when I wake up, dressing up, putting makeup. Like if I was going to the office, that is automatically a change of mindset. I think the only day that I didn't do that, I didn't enjoy it, and having a dedicated space in my apartment. So, you know, I come here, sit at my desk, I'm all ready, jacket, hair, makeup, let's do this. And then at the end of the day, sort of walking back to the living room and being like, okay, good. this is the other side. So yeah, that's a tip that has worked for me personally.
Thank you for sharing that tip, Daniela. Ruben?
Yep. Thank you. My name is Ruben Garcia, and I am CEO and co-founder of a company called pValue, and we are a brand new company, and the area of the industry that I'm in is the exam industry, and I actually started a company in 2008, 2009 in the last recession, which is very interesting because the company that I started back then is a remote proctoring company, so you can take an exam at home, so you wouldn't have to go to a testing center. I sold it to a company, it's the third world's largest testing company, and they're out of Glendale, California. But remote proctoring, as you know, is the biggest business for them right now. So a lot of people are using my technology to take exams and avoid going to testing centers. So that kind of makes me feel good. This time around, I can tell you that this is an interesting time for at least for this industry. Like any other industry, it's been hit very hard. There's a lot of exams that are not being administered, and there's a lot of revenue that's being lost because the majority of this industry's revenue comes from people sitting down and taking an exam at a testing center or at a school or at a university. So the impact it's fairly large for us. And the new company that I started is actually, it's interesting because I think for us, what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the model in which content is created. Today, companies go out and, like the GMAT exam, they go out and they pay people to write questions. And what we're building is a crowdsourcing model where anybody can write a question who's an expert in the subject area, and then they submit their content, and then we do a royalty system. So for us, this is I hate to say this, but this is probably a good economic swing for us because there's going to be a lot of people out there that are subject matter experts that are going to be able to contribute and are going to want to write content. And also, I think there's going to be a lot of companies out there that are going to be looking to save money, and this is going to be a big way for them to do it. I stay home. My sanity. I have 2 kids, and I have to be honest. It's really crazy because we're in Madrid, and it's a serious lockdown here. I end up playing a lot with them. That's how I stay sane. Building a lot of wooden houses and stuff.
Thank you. Playing with children is always fun. Adela, I'd like to get started with you. As board chair of Angeles Investors, please share with us more about Angeles Investors, what led you to be on the founding team, What are your goals, vision, and why is this area of investing, angel investing, so important to you?
Well, I'm so excited to be a part of it, really. It's really an honor because it's all about opportunity, right? It's all about giving back, and it's all about education in every aspect of it. So starting with trying to provide an environment of opportunity for, these young people that have are highly educated, have worked hard, have great ideas, and then what do they lack is, the financial opportunity, that capital. And so we're in a great position where we have the energy of founders with great ideas, and we have a group of us that has established careers in different areas and have the means to provide this capital opportunity. So that's very exciting to me to give back that way. Demographically, it's never been better for the Latino community in terms of a market that is solid, that has a lot of features that enable, mass marketing. So that's exciting. And then a lot of us, even particularly if you're not in the financial area of business, don't have access to this angel investing opportunity. It's part of maybe an alumni group, or it's part of, I don't know. It's a very kind of keep it to yourself kind of opportunity. Well, we'd like to demystify it. We'd like to open it up. And we'd like these companies like the ones like Daniela's and Ruben's that are presenting here, that are disruptive, that really are an opportunity to invest. And it's an area that, yes, it's private, so it doesn't have a lot of liquidity. And yes, it's high risk. But generally, the risk is compensated with great rewards. And so I think that all around, enabling a larger group of potential investors, enabling fabulous founders, and with great ideas, I mean, it's like great to be able to be a part of it. That's really, I'm really excited about it. It's one of the most exciting things I've been a part of. The team is amazing, by the way, and I know many of you know many of the board members and the team that is working on this, and they're just great.
Thank you for sharing, Adela. It is known that fewer than 2% of Latino entrepreneurs obtain venture funding. Daniela, can you share with us your personal experiences in fundraising venture funding?
Yeah, of course. Look, I think one thing or a couple of things that all entrepreneurs need to keep in mind is that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a lot of patience, resilience, and constantly evolve your storytelling, especially if you're going to fundraise, right? There is a lot of learning. I wouldn't call necessarily obstacles, but definitely a lot of learning as evolution as you fundraise. To this point, I've fundraised 4.4 million. So we've been at it for a little bit. As a Latina, I'm super proud to have fundraised that amount of money and have fantastic investors on our cap table. But definitely one of the biggest things during fundraising, it's time management, right? Because especially in early stage, you are building a company, it's only a handful, perhaps 2 people, you and your co-founder and maybe somebody else. And at the same time, you have to fundraise, and it takes an insane amount of time because usually only 10% of the people that you pitch to are the ones that write checks, especially at the beginning, right? So I think going from a mindset of there is hustle involved, you gotta keep pushing through, and don't be so hard on yourself once you hear the no's, but instead work on evolving the communication and evolving your story. It's key in order to make it happen.
Thanks, Daniela. Given that we are with Angeles Investors and ACA, can you tell us how angel investors in particular supported you, and particularly Latino angel investors?
Look, angel investors are key, especially, in early stages. I think because with angels, you build commonality, right? It's a little bit different than when you do venture. So as everything, it has pros and cons, right? um, Being that, and in my particular opinion, right, with angels, you have to build more on those commonalities, and that's why it's great that we have Latinos investors on our cap table, because at the end of the day, as all of the angels probably in the call, no, you're investing your own capital, right? So you strongly have to believe in the idea, in the person, in the execution. Versus when you go VC, it's their job to deploy capital. So from a mindset perspective, it's very, very different. And for us, having angels support us, believe in the product, invest since the beginning, was really, really great and exciting, and it just helps you push forward and execute on the idea.
Thank you, Daniela. I'd now like to move back to Adela. Given that we are in an unprecedented time, what types of businesses is Angeles Investors excited to invest with in now? And what advice would you give entrepreneurs on how they can get connected with angel investors?
Sure. Well, we've had a vision to give primary attention and focus to companies that like I mentioned, that are disruptive, that are tech oriented, that have a digital strategy. And, coming from the financial sector myself, which I would say hasn't been, the most accelerated industry in this area, I see today the urgency of this strategy, the necessity. The reality is that only the companies that have embraced digital strategies are able to operate in this environment. Now, admittedly, this is an extreme environment. Nevertheless, the acceleration that is taking place in digitizing everything that we do is amazing. So I think that one of the few good things that have come from COVID-19 is at least emphasizing that our strategy, our focus is a valid one. So we look for those types of companies. And then how should entrepreneurs access? Well, we're very accessible, and we have the website, and all the links are there, and we're very interested in connecting with as many potential entrepreneurs as possible, and expanding our own group of about 40 founders now, and having that be a group of 200 in the next couple of years. That would be the goal, in order to provide more capital opportunities to a greater number of startups with great potential.
Thank you. Ruben and Daniela, maybe we can start with Ruben. Can you tell us a bit about how your respective companies have been impacted by COVID-19? How have you adapted your business models? How are you communicating the impact of COVID-19 with your business to your investors? And what feedback are you receiving from your investors?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've received several emails from investors asking me about like the health of the company, so forth. And I got to say that I'm going to say it's luck, but we're very lucky, because I decided not to raise capital this year very early on, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go out there and get some customers and et cetera. For some reason, something made me change my mind back in first week of January, and I've had conversations with investors, and I decided to go ahead and raise capital, and we closed on our last investor the day before the market tanked. So we have all the capital that we need, and the other thing I would say is that our goal. We oversubscribed our goals by double, so we have a pretty long runway, which I got to say, we're very lucky because of that. But so when so our investors, I get a couple emails here and there, and I just remind them that, they just wrote their check, and we're just starting. So we're building out. We're in the very early stages of building out a product. I don't have any. We just hired a couple of people at this point. But I get the emails from investors. How many? Did you apply for the PPP? And I'm like, well, we don't have any. We don't have anybody. We don't have any salaries yet, so no, we didn't. So I gotta say we're in a pretty good place now. I know, I think for us, and maybe I know we can talk about this later, but this is a really big opportunity for us. Talk about a lot of unfortunate things that are going on today, as Adela mentioned. But for us, this is a good opportunity, because what's going to happen is, my perspective is, we're going to see a lot of clients, a lot of partners that are going to look for other ways to generate exam content, and we're going to be, we're going to have our product out there at the right time.
Thanks, Ruben.
Yeah, look, for us also, it's interesting, right? Because as Ruben said, there is a lot of opportunity. And I think as entrepreneurs, it's in our DNA to look for the opportunity in the ups and downs. Same thing with early stage investors and angel investors. I think the beauty about early stage is that you see opportunity where others don't. For us, we optimize cash flow for purchases. So actually we're very relevant during this time, a time where people are looking more than ever to stretch their dollars and feel good about their purchases. We did evolve our business because we were heavily focused on fashion. It wasn't intentional, actually. When we started with the platform, we tested 5 different verticals, and fashion gave us the best ROI. And everybody knows the story of Amazon, right? They started with books, proved the concept, and then evolved. So that's the approach that we took. And it was already in our roadmap for 2020 to expand into other verticals. But all of a sudden, with what happened with COVID, we accelerated that. And a couple of weeks ago, started offering computers, furniture, technology, so that then we can stay relevant. Because one thing that is certain is that, look, we're humans, and humans are aspirational by nature. And regardless of what happens, there is always something that you're gonna want. And perhaps it's not a pair of shoes, but now you're gonna need an iPad to entertain your kids, for like what Ruben was saying earlier, right? Like keeping your kids entertained during this time. So there is always gonna be a need for something, and we really had to sit down and see how can we better serve our customer and what verticals are gonna be relevant for them. So we quickly had our development team heads down, and in 2 weeks release what we call like phase 1 of external reeling. And we actually have seen right now over 30% of all of our reels started are for electronics, which is fascinating, right? In such a short period of time. But you see how the market sort of changes and evolves. And then, like, from a business everyday perspective, as I was saying before, right, making sure that we set up a structure for our team where there is still communication, where they still feel that they can connect with each other, not only on a transactional way, but also building sort of the community of what the real internal team strives for.
Thank you, Daniela. Adela, we know that it's a huge challenge for Latino entrepreneurs to obtain funding to begin with, but even more so during this uncertain period. What has been your experience in investing in Latino entrepreneurs, and why should this be a group of entrepreneurs that our audience should consider investing with?
Yeah, well, I think I touched on the demographics. It's never been a better time in terms of the percent of the market that Latinos represent, in terms of the wave of Latinos that have, a great deal of education and can participate in this digital economy. It's just excellent timing. I think that it's actually prudent to include some form of angel investing or startup investing in your portfolio. I'm not suggesting you tie up all of your retirement funds in this, but just as we see the dramatic volatility in equities right now, and even in fixed income right now, considered usually the safe haven, well, there is value, real quantifiable value to investing in startups. There's risk, and then there's the opportunity for returns as well. So there's value in building a diversified portfolio of investments in great companies like these. And we hope to together get people comfortable with the concept and develop a portfolio that will provide, very, very exceptional returns to our angel investors, to the Angeles.
Thank you. Daniela and Ruben, what advice would you give entrepreneurs who are, one, considering starting a business now, two, who are in the midst of fundraising during this uncertain time?
If you don't mind, Daniela, I'll start. I think there's, I got to say, like I've seen a lot of pitches. I've mentored a lot of people, and one of the things that I find very interesting in all of this is that I think that there's capital out there, and in the first business that I raised, like I said, I raised capital in right after the housing crash, and it was really about I believe it was about my passion, and I had this passion of I really feel like that there's somebody which is myself, right? I really want to invent a technology to change the industry and to allow people to take things home, right? That's what I was passionate about, and I really used that to talk to clients and to get people to give me memos of understanding, saying that they would be my client if I can develop the technology. So I think that it's very possible. I think that if you have a really good idea, getting the capital, I think you can do it, and the capital is out there, and you have a lot of great people like Adela that are going to invest in your idea, in your business. And I can say this time around it was a lot easier, right? Because I've had an exit. But even in the first time when I pitched it to investors, I brought the receipts. I said, here's some clients that are interested. This is my idea. I want to, it's very disruptive. It's going to be really big, and it turned out to be really big. But and I feel firmly about this idea as well. So I think it's both a little bit about proving it and also having something that's big. And I think that the investors are out there, and people like Adela. I think there's a lot of people like her who are willing to place a bet and say, what, I like this idea, I like this company, I like this vision and the team, etc.
Thank you, Ruben, for those encouraging words. Daniela?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, in this time, cash is king, right? I know that from an investor standpoint, probably valuations are gonna be lower than what entrepreneurs anticipated at the beginning of the year. But at the end of the day, do you prefer to have 100% of MySpace or 5% of Facebook, right? So you really have to be honest and push forward and make sure that you have, especially if you're a founder or a CEO, that you have enough money in the bank in order to push your vision to the next level and hustle for that. And then second, time is the most valuable asset that you have, and that goes for both, for investors and for entrepreneurs, right? I think in early stage there is a lot of back and forth, and many times when we really like an angel, or when an angel really likes the personality of an entrepreneur, investment can become 1,000 meetings out of the sudden. And I think the best thing that you can do is quickly understand what's gonna lead you to a check and what's not gonna lead you to a check, and be respectful with time on both ends, right? I think one of the things that I have really appreciated is when people have been really quick with their no's. Great, no hard feelings. you just keep moving. Don't get stuck. If you've had like 5 meetings with a person and there is no indication of writing you a check, just like move on. Because if not, I would even say 3 meetings, but let's say 5, right? Just move on, because the worst thing that you can do for your team, for your idea, and for everything is just getting obsessive about a specific check that you want. And for investors, it's okay to say no. I feel that many times they feel like, I like this person, you know, I don't really want to say no, because if others come in, then I'm going to miss on the opportunity, because there is a FOMO aspect. So I think it's a matter of respecting time on both ends. It's instrumental, especially in times like now, where we really have to be efficient.
Thank you, Daniela. Well, thank you, Adela, Ruben, and Daniela for your insights. I'm now going to open it up for Q&A. The first question that we have is for Pat. What are some of the most helpful investor-entrepreneur interactions that you're seeing across the angel space?
You know, there really are just so many wonderful stories out there that I've seen that I'm hesitant to pick out any specific ones, but I would reference you to that Leaders in Action blog that I mentioned that's on the ACA homepage at angelcapitalassociation.org. There's some great stories there, but by and large, what I've seen across the country are angel groups that have really risen to the challenge. They've focused internally on their portfolio companies, and they're trying to support and guide those companies that are really struggling. And keep in mind, this is one of the fundamental differences, I believe, between the VC community and the angels. You know, they are doing a lot of what they do because it's from their heart. They're passionate about that. Many of them were entrepreneurs themselves, and they care deeply about their local community. So, they've been wonderful in good times, but I think we've really seen them rise to the challenge and just do all that they can to bring their expertise to the forefront and their network to help these companies that are really struggling.
Thank you. The next question is for Ruben. They ask, how do you manage your team? I understand you're in Europe. Any tips? I have a virtual team and it is not easy.
It's really easy for me, and I don't know. We started this company virtually. We were never going to open up an office, so we have a bunch. We use a lot of technology, obviously, it's all about documentation and communication, I think. And I have the time zone a little bit interesting. You know, I start my day in the morning. I get a ton done, and then I have a great team out of Paraguay. And my CTO is out of Austin, and he wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning to walk his dog. So that's, I usually get a call from him when he's out and about. But it has not been a problem, where I think you just have to leverage the technologies that are out there and document. And we have daily calls. I talk to everybody every day. I mean, you have to make up for not having those, face-to-face meetings. It's all about just being there and being available and talking every single day. That's the way you do it.
Thank you. And lastly, this question is for Adela. What are the requirements for becoming a member of Angeles Investors?
Well, you have to be an accredited investor, and we're looking for Angel founders and members that are thinking that they'd be willing to invest $20,000 to $30,000 a year for several years. So that kind of commitment is key.
Betty, actually, I made a mistake. I was reading the questions and I clicked type answer on one that had my name. So it shows that it's answered, but it's not. So if I have a minute, I can quickly answer that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so the question was, how is it to be a female entrepreneur? Any tips? Honestly, I never think that, gender or ethnicity, you just have to go and pitch your story. You're a founder, you're a CEO, and that's all that you should care about. And that has worked really nicely for me. I never justify it has to be a very extreme case for me to say that, oh, they didn't like me because I'm a female, right? Like, that's not something that I ever have at top of mind when I go pitch. I think, I go and I pitch to the same investors that other people that have startups in my field would go and pitch. I'm not afraid to do it, because what's the worst thing that can happen? They tell you no. That's not the end of the world, and it's part of being an entrepreneur. So definitely, I get that question about being a female and being Latina a lot, and I think I purposely sometimes just like block it, because I want to focus on the things that the market consider an advantage and really leverage those advantages instead of thinking on the things that people can consider a weakness.
Thank you, Daniela. I want to say thanks again to all of our speakers, Ruben, Daniela, Adela, and Pat. I'd now like to turn it over to Pat for some closing thoughts.
Well, thank you again, and let me thank Angeles Investors for doing this. I think, once again, we've proven that we're not going to let technology get in the way, or COVID-19, and we're going to find a way to interact and engage with each other and have stimulating conversations. So thank you for all that you're doing and staying safe. But I'd like to leave you with, two thoughts that I think are really simple concepts, but if you think about them, they can be so powerful. And Adela had mentioned about, maybe there are some good things coming from COVID-19 and where we're at. And I would submit to you that one of those may be that in normal times, one of the things that holds back most people is the fear of change. And I think we're almost in an upside down world now where the fear of not changing is more of an issue. And so that really opens up thinking and opportunity when we look at the path we were on and where we were headed, to say, uh-oh, that's, headed for disaster. So I got to take that leap. I got to take on some more risk, and I got to try something new, because I can see if I keep doing what I was doing, it's not going to be good. So think about that and how you can use that, to your advantage. And then the final thought that I had is that since the beginning of time, the world has seen wars, and we've fought over race and religion and politics and economics and everything under the world. And that's always caused a divide, right? But the other side of war is that it brings, people together. You have allies. And there's no doubt in my mind that if at some point a bunch of Martians came down and attacked Earth, the world would band together and we would attack that threat, and it would create a new bond. And if you think about it in that perspective, that's really what COVID-19 has done. The world is in this together. We can all sympathize and empathize with each other. And I'm hopeful that there are going to be some new opportunities that come out of this. We got a long way to go when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity and all that. But you know what? I believe if you walk down the street today with a mask on your face and you see someone else that's got a mask on your face, you've got a bond between you that's never, ever been there before. So I think we got to figure out how to realize that moment and make it last after the pandemic ends. But thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Pat, for those words. And I want to say thank you again to all of our panelists for this really great conversation. And thanks for all of those that joined today. If you are interested in becoming a member or apply to Angeles Investor Pitch Nights, please visit angelesinvestors.com for more details. And stay tuned for the next Angeles Investors webinar next month. Thank you again to everyone, and we hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.